Hello, and welcome to our video audio podcast, Couched in Color. I'm your mental health expert, teen and young adult crusader, and psychological scientist, Dr. Alfie. This podcast reflects my life's work, helping our young people and young at heart identify mental health challenges, disrupt negative patterns, and discover the best versions of themselves. I'm so happy that you've joined us. For over 20 years, I want you to know that I've had my finger on the pulse of BIPOC teen mental health. I recognize that historically and currently, with these dual pandemics of COVID and racial injustice raging, our young people are suffering, sometimes they're struggling, and always the care that they need is quite scarce. So each week, I'm joined by young people, mental health experts, celebrities, and influencers to help us uncover the secrets to healing the hearts and minds of our BIPOC teens, their families, and their communities. Here at Couched in Color, we believe deeply in spreading love and light, bolstered by culturally relevant science. So let's dive in. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me on my podcast. It's called Couched in Color, and it's, obviously an honor to have you on. We met last year around this topic of mental health, and you were really gracious, coming in, and you were nice to my daughter. So my daughter, that was a highlight for her. So we really appreciate it. And for the two people in the whole world who may not be familiar, only them two who may not be familiar with you, will you tell us a little bit about who you are? And then if you could add in there a little bit about what your passion is around mental health.
My name is Leonard McKelvey, aka Charlamagne Tha God. I'm from Moss Corner, South Carolina, country boy, raised on the dirt road. Been doing radio here in New York since 2006. Started off here as a co-host for the Wendy Williams show. I skipped a whole lot just now, but it's just like that. But when I working with Wendy, that was like the 3rd radio station I worked at. So I've been fired from 4 radio stations. And so Power 105 is the 7th radio station I think I've worked at all together. I don't remember. But, it's been a journey, you know what I mean? It's just been a very long process, but when you look back on it, it wasn't that long at all. And I do radio, I write books, I produce television. I'm just happy to be here.
Amen.
And my passion around mental health is just the fact I want to be the best human that I can be. I want to be the best, father. I want to be the best, husband. I want to be the best friend. I want to be the best, brother. I can't be the best version of myself if I'm not, really focusing on all aspects of myself, and I think a lot of times we focus so much on physical health, but we don't think about, what's in here.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you decide to be, I don't know, for us, we're Black, and Black people, I'm Gen X, so you're a little bit younger than me. And Gen X folks, we don't talk about mental health.
Gen X? What's Gen X?
Come on, man. Gen X is anybody born 65 to 75.
Okay. All right.
I think. Yeah, 65 to 79. I'm sorry. That's Gen X. And then
huh?
Oh, you in there?
Yeah, I'm born 78.
Oh man, I thought you okay. We on the same team. Yay! I don't feel quite so old. So yeah. So, in our generation, come on, when we were growing up, I can be honest, I never had those conversations. I don't think anybody talked about that. And if you did, it was always stuff like, remember that movie Soul Food when they were like crazy old Uncle Joe? Right? That was like how you talked about it. It was never something. It was not a normal part of our lexicon. It was not a normal part of conversation. So I'm wondering for you, and I know you probably said this before, but if you could tell us a little bit about, for you, was there something that happened where you decided, one, I want to be the best version of myself, so I'm going to focus on my mental health. That's one. And then two, I'm going to be open and just talk about it publicly.
Yeah, it was a few things, man. It was quite a few things. Number one, I've always dealt with anxiety. I first got diagnosed with anxiety in 2010. And, what was so strange about me getting diagnosed with anxiety, what the panic attack I had, which I now label as a panic attack, didn't know what it was back then. It was so severe that I was like, I'm gonna go to the hospital. Now, mind you, I had gone to the hospital numerous times before for those same, heart palpitations, thinking something's wrong with my heart, getting the EKG, all of that stuff like that. And everything's fine. You got an athlete's heart. But this was the first time that I had went where a doctor actually said to me, do you suffer from anxiety? And I was like, not that I know of.
Right.
He, like, it sounded like you had a panic attack. And he was like, had this happened before? And I was like, yeah. And at the time, I brushed it off because he asked me, was I stressed out about anything? And at the time, I had been just gotten fired from the fourth time, for the fourth time from radio. I was like 31, 32 years old, living back at home with my mom. You know, this is after having a lot of success with Wendy, being on VH1 with her, being on Fox with her, you know, having my own success in the mornings in Philadelphia doing radio. And now I'm back living at home with my mom. And my wife, she had to go back home and live with her parents, you know, and I just felt like a failure. So like when he said that to me, I was just like, all right, I'm gonna be good. All I gotta do is get me another job. Everything gonna be fine. So you fast forward a year from that, I end up on the Breakfast Club. And you know, life is good, even though I'm still having those same panic attacks every now and then. But you know, 4 or 5 years later, I'm wealthy. You know, I'm not gonna say wealthy. I'm doing well.
Yeah.
But, I'm doing well.
Say wealthy.
I'm doing well. And I remember just saying to myself, like, literally, I was saying things like, I don't want to go crazy. Right? I kept saying that to myself, like, because, you know, not saying that these people went crazy, but you hear the stories. You hear the stories about Lauryn Hill. You hear the stories about Dave Chappelle. You hear the stories about Kanye West. And I don't have success like them at all. You know what I mean? Not yet anyway, or at least to me. But it's like, I'm like, man, I don't want to snap. So I would be talking to different people who had experienced success, and all of them started telling me about therapy. They was like, yo, I go to therapy, and I do CBT, and just different forms. So I was flirting with it for a while. And then like 2 of my homegirls, man, Angela Rye and Amanda Steels, you know, they went a lot, and they still go a lot. And I remember having a conversation with Amanda in particular, and she just was telling me how, like, you know, men don't want to admit that they're damaged, and you know, men don't ever want to go do the work to get to that space of healing. And so I remember being on vacation one time, and I was sitting by the pool, and like literally my family's there, like my in-laws, close friends, getting a haircut, and I had a feeling of peace. I had a feeling of peace like I'd never imagined. And I was just like, I want to be here as much as possible. Not here on vacation.
Yes.
I was like, I want to be here. I want that feeling of serenity as much as possible. And so I was like, I'm gonna start going. And so that's what I did, because I always wanted to return to center. Now, I mean, like I'm using terminology that I know now. Yes. But at the time, I didn't know what that feeling was, that feeling of bliss. But now I know that's me returning to center. I always want to return to center. So that's when I started going. And I've been going for like 3 years now.
Wow, that's such an amazing testimony. And you definitely have the lingo, because I'm an active meditator. I really believe in that. I'm also an anxious person. I have anxiety, and it's in my family. And even though this is what I do as a mental health professional, it's still not necessarily something that we, even in my family, talk about real openly. So I can like think of family members where I'm like, yeah, you anxious. If we look in the dictionary, if you look in the DSM, your picture is next to generalized anxiety disorder. They're like, no, I'm not. You know, that's not me. Don't put that on me. And so it's this idea that I think for us, maybe you have an opinion about it too that you would like to share, but I think some of it has to do with we're already Black, and like for me, I'm a woman. I'm already a woman, so I don't need to be Black and a woman and then have this mental illness label on me too, because I feel like that's going to make people look at me, I guess, some kind of way. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that? What is it about mental illness that makes us as Black people just shy away from it? It's like not something that we want to accept or deal with. What do you think?
Honestly, my first thought is, we just ain't got time for that shit. You know what I'm saying? Especially growing up, especially like I say it all the time. Our generation has the luxury of healing.
Yes.
We have the luxury of healing, like therapy and sacred purpose coaches and going to get massages and all of that stuff like that, like self-care Sundays. Our parents didn't have time for that because our parents was too busy working and too busy scratching and surviving. So they didn't have the luxury of being able to heal, the luxury of being able to thrive. Right? So like I think about my grandma, man. I know for a fact my grandma dealt with horrible anxiety. My grandma used to be the type of person that she'd be on the phone. She's like, I can't talk on the phone. They listening to me. And you'd be like, you don't sell dope, grandma, you don't sell dope. She's listening to you. She'll be like in the woods, and people in the woods listening to me like she was like that.
Yep. Yep.
And she would talk about her medication, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the time, growing up, we'd be like, "Oh, grandma got to take her nerve pills."
Right.
Whatever that was, you know what I mean? Clearly, she was on something that calmed her down, you know. Even my father didn't tell me until I put out my second book, Shook One, which was about my
of course,
bouts with anxiety and, you know, depression and stuff like that. He didn't tell me that his whole life he suffered from that until I put that book out. It was two things that happened. I put that book out, he read it, and then my cousin, I didn't know this young man. He was 26 years old, so he was, by the time I was living my life, he was still growing up, and he used to work with my father. Killed himself. Killed himself 4 times, four separate occasions. He shot himself in the stomach. He took a bunch of pills. I think he cut his wrist one time, and when he finally committed the act, he shot himself in the mouth. And you know, I was like, man. And my dad finally told me, he was like, yo, I've been going to therapy. You know, I used to go to therapy 2 and 3 times a week, and I've been on 10 to 12 different medications, and I tried to kill myself 30 years ago. So I'm just like, damn, if my father would have told me that growing up, then I would have at least known, okay, this is what I may be dealing with, you know, because I've been having these, man, I'm literally since I was a kid, like I would hide in the woods sometime as a child, like for no reason. Like I'd be walking down the dirt road, see my friends coming, know they my friends, and dip off in the cornfield or dip off in the woods just because, like, just all of a sudden, you know what I mean? So I wish you'd have told me that earlier. And even my father, I think about, my father used to say things like, you know, he sleeps with his gun. He would sleep with his gun and his knife. He felt like the devil was coming to get him. That's all anxiety. Like, so my family had it bad, you know, and I wish that we would have had those conversations back in the day, because I would have been able to, or they would have been able to walk me through, you know, what I was going through when I was a kid. But maybe they didn't know. My father had to know, because my father was going to therapy. So, yeah.
But you can know, and I don't know, I think there's something about, it's one thing to know, it's one thing to accept it. So like what you described for your family, you had one person in your family who was like, I'm going to go get help for this. I think that's a different kind of knowing than having the experience. And just, I think sometimes we think this is just who I am, right? This is just, you know, this is just how I am. This is just how I'm built. And so what I try to talk with people about a lot is something that you've alluded to. You don't have to live like that. Right. Yeah. And, you know, you don't. And like you said, if somebody had explained it, like I always think about, like you have children, I have children. I think about for the children, for our children and our teenagers, if we say to them, this is stuff that we're dealing with, then when they start feeling it, there's less shame attached to it. Right. Absolutely. I think I can see a little bit of your t-shirt. I think it's Silence the Shame. I think it's Shanti. Yeah. Shanti Das's group. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to get her on here one day. So I'm put it in the universe.
I love Shanti. Shanti she's like you. You know, she's a. I don't call y'all mental health advocates. I call y'all mental health warriors.
Oh.
You know, because one thing I didn't realize when I started having these conversations is how many people out there really want to go get the help, really want to go get the assistance. They just didn't have the courage to get up and go do it. Right. You know, and it's just like, you have no reason to feel crazy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I understand, like, and by the way, you know, it's this other thing, right? It's in the movie Juice.
Okay.
And it's when Tupac is standing by the locker and Q opens the locker and he closes it and he's just standing there and he called Pac crazy. And he goes, you know, when you called me that earlier, I was tripping. But now I don't give a.
Right.
I am crazy. Like,
right.
Sometimes you might have to psych yourself up like that.
Right.
You might have to tell yourself, like, you know what? Maybe I don't think like everybody else. Maybe I don't react like everybody else. If that's what y'all want to label crazy, fine. But guess what? I know where to go get help for my crazy.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm. That's right. It's like taking ownership. That's what I tell people. It's a part of who you are, because there's so many of us who've been exposed to traumatic experiences. And, you know, people are like, I just want to forget. I want to put that in the past. And I'm like, you can't forget. Like, maybe you can. I think what you can do is make it so that it's such a small part of your life that it doesn't run your life. I said, but you don't want to forget, because that's part of what makes us who we are. We just have to have a way to manage it. And that's what I try to teach people. So I really appreciate you, you know, giving that perspective. Sometimes you do need to tap into all those different parts of who you are. Sometimes you don't want to tap into that part of who you are, but all of it all the time, like that's what makes you unique. That's what makes you you. So I'm curious. I want to shift gears just a little teeny bit and talk a little bit about the climate that we're in, like today, with you as a Black man. Given, I always have to keep saying that brother's name, George Floyd. I even think about Christian Cooper, right? And the stress of trauma, like what he must have felt like in the moment. Thank God it had a better outcome. But just like you carry that with you, right? And the hypervigilance, like next time he goes outside, is he gonna be like looking around like, oh, is some stuff about to pop off again? And so for you as a Black man, do you have any thoughts about, can you articulate for us what has it been like for you to just see obviously what happened to our brother who was taken from us, who was murdered, and then like all the protests and like what has that been like for you as a Black man?
I it's so interesting, because we're coming out of pandemics, right?
Yep.
Like none of this, it's almost like you watching a Netflix show and they don't even ask you if you want to watch the next show. They just
Right.
jump.
Yes.
To it. And for me, I was fine throughout the whole pandemic. Something my therapist has been trying to tell me for the longest is just let go of things you can't control.
Amen.
And so I never could grasp that concept. Like I'd always be stressing over things and trying to control things. And for some reason, when this pandemic happened, I didn't know what coronavirus was. None of us knew what coronavirus was. So it was very easy to let go and let God.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah.
I finally had that feeling like, oh, okay, this is what my therapist's been telling me. I can't control it. It's out of my control. Let it go. And I was fine. But man, it was actually 3 situations. It was Ahmaud Arbery.
Yes.
That was a trigger. Breonna Taylor was definitely a trigger because that is just being honest, I don't even want to put this in the atmosphere. I think about that a lot. I think for some reason I think about home invasions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think about somebody kicking in my door and running in my house. I don't know why. That's just a thing for me. Like that's a constant replay in my mind that I always try to push out. And I mean, and not only that, I think, and this is so crazy, I think about police running in my house. I don't know if it's because I've been in drug busts before. You know what I mean? I've been in 2 drug busts before. One drug bust I actually went to jail. The second drug bust I actually got away. Me and my man, Drug Garnett, rest in peace. And, for whatever reason, that's always in my mind. Because that's such a thing, right? When you're sitting in a house and boom, the door, that's some PTSD that never quite gets up out of you. So I kept imagining, Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend having that experience. Her boyfriend doing exactly what you should do in that situation, grabbed his legal firearm and protected his house. Cops shooting. Sadly, young lady Breonna gets killed. So that was a trigger. And then, Big Floyd in Minneapolis. That was another trigger. And I don't like watching those videos, but I was watching CNN that day.
Yeah.
And that's when they decided to just, not tell me another show was coming on.
Right.
So I'm watching coronavirus pandemic news, and then it turns out to be this. And I'm like, bro, what did I just watch?
Yep.
So that took me to a whole nother place. And I'm kind of in that place right now where I'm having those panic attacks. And I was dismissing a lot of those panic attacks last week because I didn't want to acknowledge, because I had been so at peace. I had such a peace of mind for like those past 2-3 months that I didn't want to acknowledge something was triggering me, and it was that situation. And that bothers me so much only because like your therapist tells you to let go of things you can't control. I can't let that go because I know we can control it. I know we can be better human beings. I know that we can demand more of the people who govern us.
Yes.
I know that we can push and get legislation changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I know that we can dismantle this mechanism called white supremacy. I know we can. So it's hard. I can't let that go.
Yeah. I appreciate you being so honest about what you're experiencing because it's a lot of brothers out there going through exactly the same thing, who've never gone to see a mental health professional, who've never accepted or acknowledged that what they're dealing with is anxiety, who aren't able to accept that what they may be feeling is, a panic attack. And so to have you say it, that says a lot, not only for men, but for boys, right? Because it's a lot of young boys out here struggling with this stuff too, right? And like I had someone was telling me, a close friend, that they have a small child, like a 4-year-old, and they stopped on the side of the road. This was like a couple days ago, just to like, I don't know if it was, they just needed to make a text or do something. They had to take a quick stop and they pulled off to the side of the road. It was a man and his son burst into tears. And I was like, and I immediately knew why, right? Because the kid was scared. They were on the side of the road. He was worried some cops were gonna come harass them, right? What is that to put on a 4-year-old?
Right.
So, so it's just, I appreciate you articulating it. And I like the fact that you said that there's some aspect of this you feel like we as Black people and we as people, we can do something about. And one in particular is in this political realm. So I follow you on social media. Like, you make wonderful posts. I appreciate that you don't put a lot of graphic stuff up there, like you said. So when I'm scrolling, it's not the Netflix and the show goes from happy to a horror show just like that. And I don't have no warning. So I appreciate you, but I respect you for that. And so what I'm wondering about is really, there's this glaring, violent, scary, horrible stuff that happens, like the murder of George Floyd. And then there are these other like sort of microaggression type, day-to-day type of racism that we deal with. And one thing in particular that it makes me think of is the whole situation from when Joe Biden came on the Breakfast Club and made his comment about whatever it was, if you really Black, then you're not gonna vote for Trump, you'll vote for me, or however he said it. So to me, that's one of those things where, and I don't know how you feel about it, and you'll explain it, but that's one of those things where it's like, I'm not really sure how I want to take that. I'm not really sure what to do with that, because that's the kind of stuff we talk about. I learned this new term, well, I've known it a while, called the weathering effect, right? And that's an African-American scholar, a woman, coined that term in the early 90s. And it's basically, in layman's terms, how the wear and tear of racism on Black people eats away at us from the inside. Right. So on a cellular level, it just sort of beats us up and it impacts and it changes our DNA. Right. So it weathers us, it beats us down. That kind of stuff, I think, when you hear comments like that, you're kind of like, wait a minute now, I'm supposed to feel some kind of way about that. I don't know. But Joe is cool, so I don't really know what to think of. Like, I don't know, man. Should I check him or not? So do you have any thoughts for us about, I know you have thoughts, but can you share with us a little bit about what was going on with you when that happened?
I mean, honestly, when he said that, my reaction to him was exactly what it was. My reaction to him was, it's not about Trump, it's about getting something for my community. Like I honestly, that was my focus. My focus when I talk to elected officials like that are people that want to be elected officials. It's like, yo, how are you going to help Black people dismantle the mechanism of white supremacy?
Amen.
Like, that's it. Like like my vote is quid pro quo. Right. I've watched Black people throughout this country vote election after election, and our communities don't change.
Right.
Our hoods don't change.
Right.
Clearly, when it's a pandemic like coronavirus, who gets impacted the worst? You see these people in the streets marching, for the killings that are happening at the hands of the police to unarmed Black and brown people in this country. It's like, what are y'all doing for us?
Right.
What legislation is in place to protect us?
Right.
We damn sure ain't get no economic justice from this country, and we built it for free.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
So it's like when I'm talking to somebody like Joe Biden, I'm focused. Like,
right.
Yeah, he said what he said. To me, that was just like, whatever. All right, he ain't talking.
Yeah, whatever. Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, right. Honestly, how I thought about it. I mean, I knew that it was going to probably be a thing. I didn't know how big a thing it was going to be, but I wasn't about to get in a back and forth with him about that. I need to stay on message. And my message to him is, you need to lean into the Black community, because 4.4 million people didn't show up in 2016 that showed up in 2012. More than a third of them were Black. You need us. And there's no guarantee that we're going to show up this year unless you're offering us something. So he needed to stay on message. You need to stay right here with us, Mr. Biden.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't think nothing of it. He said it and I was like,
whatever. Yeah. I feel you. Okay, I feel you. Well, thank you for answering that. So I don't want to take too much of your time. We're going to try to wind down a little bit. And there's two things I like to do. I have one question and then I have one exercise I like to do with everybody. Okay. And this the psychologist to me, I can't help it. I always want to end on like a peaceful note. Like you said, you like that peace. And I'm the same way when I go on vacation and I go to the ocean front.
Oh,
I always got to go to the ocean. That is peace. So when I meditate, I listen to ocean sounds because that takes me.
Oh, you a Cancer though?
No, I'm a Pisces.
Pisces is my sign though.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm a Cancer. I'm a water.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. So one thing I want to ask is, as a parent, what kind of advice would you, a Black parent, what kind of advice do you have for other parents in terms of how do they communicate these messages about mental health and taking care of your mental health? Like you always talk about invest in your mental wealth, which I love, and this idea of dropping jewels. And I have to tell you, I was so ecstatic when I saw you shout out. She's a colleague, Rita Walker's book about
Oh,
the unapologetic guide to Black mental health. I was so happy. That's awesome.
that book is
Yeah.
incredible. That
Is
book,
it okay?
everybody needs to go out there and purchase that book because, like, you know, Taraji P. Henson, she uses this term called cultural competency.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's like when you listen to Rita Walker talk, like she is so culturally competent.
Oh
What Black people are experiencing in this country and what we
yes.
experience in regards to mental health. That book is amazing. She's
Oh,
dope.
I love it. Well, I love that for her. She's a little bit younger than me, so she came in a little bit behind me, but I'm so pleased to see her, because in our field, folks don't want to talk about Black people having mental health. Like, they don't want it to be different. They say, oh, well, we already know how to treat depression and this. I'm like, no, it ain't the same. Some of that stuff is a little bit different. So I'm so glad that you, like, are supportive. So my question is there any piece of advice you would give parents about, is it ever too early to start talking to your kids about mental health? And what kind of messages do you think it's important to give them?
I don't think it's too early. My daughter's 11. Me and her have done breathing exercises together. She actually has a phone case. I wish her phone probably in the kitchen if they went for a walk. But on her phone case, I have her phone case says social media is bad for your mental health. So she's gone. She reads that all the time. She's not on social media at all. She doesn't play on her phone that much. Like I'm really raising her the way that I would want to be raised. And I'm going to do that with all my daughters. I want all my daughters to meditate. I want all my daughters to practice mindfulness. If they feel like they want to start going to therapy at an early age for whatever reason, why not?
Yes.
Why not? Because I always tell people therapy for me is like, organizing your brain.
Yes.
So it's like, you go into your brain and you go
Yes.
into a closet and you start like removing stuff you don't need and packing it up, putting it away or giving it away.
That's it.
Organizing the stuff that you want to keep, bringing new stuff in. So it's just like, I wish I would have done that much earlier than 37, 38 years old. I'm going to be 42 this year. I just started going to therapy a few years ago. So
Yeah.
it's like, I wish I'd have started going way earlier.
Yeah.
So for me, I want that for her.
Okay.
Because it's just almost like, it's fun to watch. Like, because I know what it did for me as a man. And I know how it helped me to evolve and it helped me to grow. So imagine doing that to the babies.
Yes.
Woo.
Yes. Yes. Oh, there's something so powerful about that, because all your girls get to experience their whole life with this idea of I can live from a space of peace, right? Yeah. I don't have to live from this angst and this anxiety and this worry and this sadness. I know what peace can feel like. I love that. So there's two things I'm gonna say in the end. Mm-hmm. One is this little exercise. The second is, I would love it. I'm gonna put this plug in. I'm gonna shoot my shot. Anytime we can be helpful, I can be helpful with your audience at the Breakfast Club talking about mental health, especially now.
No, you. That's an open invitation.
Oh, okay.
I had you on for Mental Health Month. I see. It's like I said, the Zoom. It's a lot of conversations I would love to have in person.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of people on for the. We had Dr. Rita Walker was on.
Good.
Attorney Corey Minor Smith was on.
Okay. Has Shanti been on to talk about her organization?
Shanti was on for Mental Health this month. Shanti's been on before though, but she was on. Yeah, we had a few people on.
Okay. All right. Open invitation. I will take it. So now I want you to just pick a number 1 through 5, and then I'm gonna explain to you what I'm gonna do.
3.
All right, 3. So I have these cards. I don't know if you can see them. They're called affirmators. They're good for kids. They have kids affirmators.
Okay.
And the affirmators are positive affirmations. They kind of try to put a little joke to them. But it's really about teaching you to put good thoughts into the universe and to hold good thoughts. So I use these a lot. I'm going to count 3 of them, and then I'm going to read it to you, and then I want you to give me any reflection you have on it, okay? 1, 2, 3. All right. Okay. This one's odd. I never read this one before. So the card says, lunch. I eat my own food, and I let others eat their own food. If there's not a name on the food, but I didn't buy the food, I use my brain to remember that I didn't buy the food, and I assume that someone else whose name is not my name, bought the food. It's kind of confusing, even though they didn't write my name on the food. I will also repeat this affirmation very loudly so everyone can benefit from the gentle positivity. That was an odd one. You got any thoughts?
I eat my food. I let other people eat their food.
Yeah, basically that's it.
And I know it was another part that said I eat it even when my name's not on it, or
nope. If there is not a name on it, but I didn't buy it, I use my brain to remember that I did not buy that food, right? So I leave it alone, basically, is what they're saying, because I didn't buy
it. That to me sounds like my motto, which is mind your business. You know what I'm saying?
Love it, yes.
Like mind your business, and what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, and if there is something there that don't have a name on it, I still know it's not mine.
Oh, yes.
So
yes.
I want what's mine.
Oof, I love
it. I want what's for me.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. I know you got other stuff you got to do. I appreciate you so much, my brother. And you take care. I'll be looking for you on TV and on The Breakfast Club.
All right.
Peace. All right. Bye-bye. So there you have it. That's a wrap for another episode of Couched in Color. We want you to know that we deeply value you, all of our viewers and our listeners, and everyone out there working to support optimal mental health, both for themselves and for our young people. And one of the best ways you can help our movement is by leaving us a 5-star review on our YouTube channel and everywhere you enjoy your audio podcasts, and by sharing our podcast with a friend. Please also tag us while you're out there listening and watching. Finally, head on over to dralfie.com for more information about me, www.acomaproject.org for information about my nonprofit, and those are the places you can go to learn more about how you can help. So I'll see you next week, and until then, I'm going to say what I always say, which is that I'm wishing you lots of love, lots of light, and that I'm hoping it is always, always informed by good, culturally relevant science. Take care.